Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, we took a little break, but right before the break, if you guys missed it, go back to part one. We were talking about our states experience. Two of us went to states, me and Mr. Pram over there, and we just gave you guys a little bit of a detail about how we did personally. But now we're going to be talking about the decks that performed pretty well. Obviously, it's no secret that Zekrom Electric, everybody thought was going to be the most popular deck. Everybody thought it was going to be the best deck, and sure enough, it didn't. It didn't surprise anybody because it won 9 states, and I don't want to be the one who says I told you so, but I said it was going to win 9 states, and I thought Celebi Mewtwo was going to win 5 states, and I think it did.
It won
So
7.
it won 7. Okay, well I undershot it on that, but yeah, Celebi Mewtwo ended up being the second best deck in the format, just like expected, really. So there wasn't any surprises until you get to one road deck with a couple of variations, and that was a Terrakion deck. There was no Terrakion at Arizona State. It was more of an East Coast, Midwest thing. But Pram actually ended up playing against it in the finals and losing to it. It was a straight Terrakion deck, and then I know that Aaron Curry in Florida ended up playing Georgia ended up playing a Terrakion Landorus deck, which is really a variant of that Terrakion deck. So, yeah, it performed extremely well, giving Aaron Curry top 4 and
Good second.
and yeah, second really. Wow. So it gave Aaron Curry second, and it gave Curran Hill first place. So that's, I mean, you can't really expect to do much more. Targets
There
the
also,
Zekrom Electric decks.
There's also another top 4 somewhere with the Landorus Terrakion deck, and top 4 in Canada with just Terrakion.
Wow. Yeah. See, so this deck actually performed extremely well, and it just targeted that Zekrom Electric deck. It banked on the fact that there was going to be a lot of Zekrom Electric, and that it was going to have a great matchup against it, and that people just weren't going to know how to play against it. I know that experience share, right?
Yeah, EXP
Okay.
share, yeah.
EXP share. I know that EXP share originally was touted as going to be one of the really good cards in the format, and then people just kind of said, you know what, there's Rocky Helmet, there's Eviolite, there's too much competition. It's good, but it's probably not going to make it into very many decks. And sure enough, these guys figured out a way to make it very playable. So what do you guys think? We'll start with Pram, who obviously has the most experience against the deck. What do you think about this deck, and do you feel like it's actually a contender going into the week 2 of states?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely a tier 1 deck. You should add in, like, usually beforehand there was the big 3, Durant, Celebi, and Eels. Now it's the big 4, same 3 with Terrakion. So you definitely have to keep it in mind into your playtesting rotation. There's definitely going to be a lot of people playing it, I guess courtesy of our stream. And it's really strong. Like it has like 50-50 matchups versus Celebi. I heard from Curran it's basically whoever goes first is the favorite. And the Zekrom Electric matchup, that one's weird. It's like it's kind of all based off of how well Zekrom Electric draws, not really how well Terrakion draws. Like that, it's kind of like on autopilot for the most part. You just go, I'm gonna wait until I can retaliate 6 times, 5 times, and then eventually you'll just run out of stuff. So, I think
Makes sense.
one of the major weaknesses with the deck is N. If you can catch them with N, and then yeah, you should win. But it's just hard to get there. But overall, I think Durant's probably its worst matchup. So I know some people were running Landorus to counteract that. I'm actually not sure whether Landorus is good in the other matchups though. So it's one of those I don't know situations. But overall, I think the deck's definitely tier 1, and everyone should be looking out for it.
Tier 1. Now, normally Tier 1 stands for the fact that it's going to be a very popular deck, and you have to expect to play against it and do well against it. Do you think that that's going to be the case for Terrakion coming into week 2? Or do you feel like it might still be a little bit underground? Because at the end of the day, it hasn't really been that tested, and we only have 1 week to test this deck.
Well, if just going by our viewers on YouTube, I'd say it's not really underground anymore. Like, I think we're kind of at fault for this a little bit, which is a good thing, I guess. That it's the word of Terrakion got spread really quickly. So I definitely think a lot of mid-tier, top-tier players will definitely be at least considering Terrakion. Maybe not play it, but at least consider it. And it's a really good option for people who don't have Mewtwo's. The deck plays zero Mewtwo, so if you're one of those few who just, I guess not one of those few, if you're one of the majority who does not have Mewtwo, Terrakion may be the deck for you.
Good point. Very good
Speaking
point.
of that, if anybody's going to the Wisconsin State Championships and has a Mewtwo EX that I could borrow, I would greatly appreciate it.
Terrakion it up, Kyle.
What?
Play your Terrakions.
No thank you.
No? You don't like
I got it built, though.
I also have it built on PTCGO. I found a horrible...
How's your experience share working?
I found a horrible realization that EXP share does not work. At first I thought, well, maybe I just skipped it. Maybe it was a May and I just clicked too fast, and then I waited for another Terrakion to get knocked out, and
Oh, it's a dead card in your deck.
Yeah. I was kind of sad about that. I lost the game because of it. I was just like, oh, no, now my Terrakion's not attacking.
Oops.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, Kyle, what do you think about the deck? Do you feel like it's what Pram said, which is tier 1?
I don't know whether it is or not. It's kind of just a deck that exploits how the format has shifted. I mean, the most popular deck has been Zekrom Electric. Obviously, it's pretty much a direct counter to that deck. Like, everything's weak at fighting. But the other shifts that it kind of took advantage of was double colorless became a huge theme in most decks, which made Lost Remover really strong, particularly in the Celebi Tornadus deck. And then people stopped using Eviolite, really. I saw pretty much no Eviolite in the decks that I was seeing, and that really makes Terrakion a lot stronger. When you look at knocking out a Mewtwo EX with an Eviolite compared to one without it, you're looking at Terrakion can knock it out in 2 hits, as opposed to you're only doing 70 each time if it has an Eviolite, so you're going to need 3+ powers to 2-hit knockout. Most of the time it's just going to end up being 3 hits instead. So no Eviolite makes a world of difference for that Terrakion deck. If people start playing that again, I mean, I think it'll get a little bit weaker, especially when you can attach it to like Tornadus too. But I think the biggest thing is attaching it to a Mewtwo EX. Mewtwo already is your #1 option against the Terrakion deck. And, I mean, obviously, Pram took a game off of it, almost took 2 games off it, even without Eviolite on the Mewtwo. So, I mean, that just shows how strong Mewtwo can be against it. And that's kind of what I found too. Like, an early, aggressive Mewtwo EX can really catch the Terrakion deck off guard. I mean, in the early turns of the game, that deck really isn't very strong. It really doesn't build up until turn 3, and then from turn 3 on, it does 90 damage every turn. Like, that's just how it works with experience share. You're just going to retaliate every time someone gets knocked out, or you're going to land crush. But those first 2 turns, it's really, really weak. I mean, say they just attach a fighting, and then you go up an X-ball for 60, then you're kind of putting on the back foot already, and only have a response early on in the game. So, I mean, it just comes down to Eviolite, and also people stop playing the decks that would beat a deck like that. I mean, any sort of Trainer Lock deck would absolutely destroy that Terrakion deck. Like, it's not even close. Like, Vileplume, Gothitelle, that's just a blowout. That couldn't compete with it. Even Typhlosion, I don't think the Terrakion deck could compete with that.
Now, to be fair, though, and don't let me, and I apologize for interrupting, but to be fair, that's a product of the actual metagame and not a product of, people just forgetting to play this deck. I mean, the fact that this Terrakion deck was good to begin with was because these decks that just dominate these decks that you're talking about happen to be weak to that Terrakion deck. So that's really what happened, and I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. Do you think?
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. It's just a counter to the metagame, pretty much. You're just saying, okay, these are the 3 top decks, the Zekrom Electric deck, Celebi Mewtwo, and Durant, and I can beat all these. And it's really just saying I can beat all these and I literally don't care about any other deck in the format. I will take an auto loss to pretty much everything else in the format. I mean, it's pretty much what it is. It's saying I'm going to beat 80% of the field, and if I happen to get paired up with those weirdos still playing the truth, then so be it. I'm going to lose. So it's kind of a risk in that regard. I do think it's strong, but it's like, it bothers me how simple that deck concept is, where you literally play 4 Pokemon, and you just do 90 the entire game. Like, that doesn't seem like that's something that should work in Pokemon, but somehow it does, and it's going to be around, and everybody can
neither
build
does
it.
Durant. I was thinking, and you're right, but then again, neither does Durant. So I think Pokemon's just entering a phase where...
Even Durant is much more complicated than the Terrakion deck.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to say is it shouldn't work. Like, before Durant actually got released, I said it myself. I said, Durant should not work because the concept of Durant is broken. Durant, the attack itself has to be underpowered. At least that's what I thought. Because otherwise, if it's not underpowered and it's actually good, then it's broken because it just breaks the rules of the game. And that's why I thought Durant was just going to be too slow and it just wasn't going to work. But lo and behold, it works. So that's just, I mean, it shouldn't work. Dealing 90 damage from turn 3 on should not work with just 4 Pokemon.
I think
you look at the game, you look at the past of the game, you look at the present of the game, and it just should not work.
I think
things like Electric should work.
I think a lot of it is inexperience versus the deck too. Notice if you look at Durant's wins, you'll probably I don't have any stats for this though, but I at least know personally I had a much tougher time playing against Durant initially, like the first couple games, but afterwards you're just like, oh, this is easy. Like, it's not even a challenge to play Durant anymore. You're just like, oh, I know exactly what I have to do, and if they happen to get lucky, well, they win. That's literally what Durant matchups come down to now, at least for me. And I feel like that's what Terrakion is. Like, at first, you're going to see a lot of people struggle against it, but once they kind of get used to it, it'll just stop winning as much as it. It hasn't even won it. It's won one event. I mean, but it won't be as strong as it was that first event, especially because it's easy to attack against. All you have to do is put back Eviolite.
Yeah, I agree.
See, the reason I think the Terrakion deck did well is the same reason why Durant has a chance in this format, and that's with all the strong trainers that are available. I mean, Durant, when you look at it, yeah, it's stupid. That should never work. But when you take into account cards like Catcher and Lost Remover, you're going to win a lot of games where your Pokemon shouldn't win in straight-up fights, but with these very, very strong trainers, you're just going to be able to win games based on disrupting your opponent. It goes along with N as well. So when you have Catcher, Lost Remover, N, and then in Durant's case you have Crushing Hammer, that's kind of why you can win with these super simple decks, which is what we have actually seen in the past, all the way back to 2005 with the Metagame and the Muck decks. That's all those decks were. I mean, they were turn 2, I'm just going to attack and play, back then it was just POW and energy removal too, so pretty much the same thing. So it's really not that much different. Just back then it had added disruption of shutting off powers, but that even had admin too, so really you're just seeing the new age versions of those decks, I think.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention that those decks had 10 more Pokemon, so that's 10 less trainers. And that's one thing that I want to mention is, you look at Terrakion, it's got 4 Pokemon, that's it. You have room for something like well over 30 trainers. It's dumb the amount of trainers you can put in the deck.
40 plus.
It's it's 40 plus because it only runs
Yeah.
14 energy, 4 Pokemon, and then boom, the rest trainers and supporters.
Yeah. And, I mean, you look at Tornadus, you look at that Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus deck, and my version, I believe, had 13 basics, 13 Pokemon total. I want to say maybe 14, I can't remember exactly, but 13 minus 4, that's 9 extra slots that they can mess with. We had similar energy camps, so that actually doesn't matter much. But, yeah, that's 9 more cards that he can play in his deck than I can. That's a lot of options. And that's why I really don't think it should have worked. And Kyle hit the nail on the head. I wish concepts like this didn't work in Pokemon. I really do. do wish that these kinds of decks just would not work because it kind of breaks the rules of the game and it makes it so that I don't want to say it's unfun, but it makes it so that it's like a broken game and people that want to get into the game just look at it and go like, oh, this is dumb. This is like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something simple like that, you know? So that's the one part about the Terrakion deck that I don't like is that it breaks the rules of the game just like the Durant deck. I actually played against a new player who had never played in a tournament before in his life, playing Durant in round 3, I believe. No, round 4. And it's funny because I had just tweeted too. I had just tweeted, all right, 1-2 going into round 4. Please, God, no Durant. And sure enough, he sits down across from me, and the first thing I see is a Durant. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be fun. And I got to know him a little bit, and it turns out he had never played a game of Pokemon in his life before testing for this tournament. So the day before, I think he learned how to play Pokemon or something like that. And yeah, we started playing, and he's like, yeah, I came here from you, or I played Magic earlier. I'm playing this deck, but to be honest, I don't really like Pokemon. And I was like, oh, man, that sucks. Well, it's because you're playing Durant. And he's like, yeah, I know this deck's dumb. I feel like I'm playing a solitaire game or something like that. And it's cool that he understood that concept, and he was willing to play other decks. Like, he saw that I was playing Celebi, Tornadus, Mewtwo, and he's like, dude, I want to play that deck. Or I saw that Lightning deck. I really think that deck's going to be pretty cool. I think that deck's pretty cool to play. But he's sitting there playing the Durant deck, and he's just, he's sitting there going like, well, this is lame. If I can't remove that energy, if I can't make you retreat, spend a retreat cost or whatever with that Skyro, I'm going to lose. So sure enough, he saw the Skyro and he scooped because he knew he had lost. But yeah, he sits there and he says, this is not a fun game. And that's what I don't like. And I really wish that Pokemon did not do this because of that one reason. Is that this new player is the exact reason for that is, and same thing applies with Terrakion. It's just, you sit there and you're like, well, if these 4 Pokemon can't beat you, I can't win. If these 4 Pokemon can beat you, I win. There's no in-between. There's no give and take.
Outside of Durant, I don't think they expected anyone to make a deck like Terrakion. Let's be honest. When you're designing the card Terrakion, you don't go, if someone figures this out, if someone makes a deck with 4 Terrakion. No, card designers don't do that. So, I think Terrakion's really more of a product of the metagame rather than the card developers going, Terrakion, yeah, let's make them really good.
Yeah, I guess I just wish these Pokemon weren't that strong, and that 90 damage wasn't.
I think we're kind of making maybe a little bit too big of a deal out of it. It's probably I think it's easily counterable. Like honestly,
no doubt about it. Yeah,
it's a gimmick.
If you really want to counter it hard, all you have to do is flip heads on the Worlds promo from like 2010. No joke. Like the deck lives. The deck lives on EXP share. So if you just nail 3 of them at once and then take a knockout, they just lose.
Just take my boy Virizion in, baby.
Or he played his boy Virizion. Play 2 of those guys. He played 2 of them.
How can they beat that?
Yeah.
Just got to catch her all day. And hit your plus powers all day. But we're not trying to say, oh man, Terrakion just broke the game. The game's over, you know. Everybody's gonna be playing Terrakion. Everybody's gonna be playing this mirror match. No, by no means. The deck is very vulnerable. The deck is very, obviously it's not human, but it's easy to beat. But it's also just not cool. I don't like the concept of the deck, and that's just a personal gripe. Has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I just don't like the concept of those decks, and I wish that they didn't exist, plain and simple.
Yeah. Who thinks of 4 Terrakion?
Yeah, that's the first thought that came to my mind.
4 Terrakion.
Honestly, I was more impressed that actually someone came up with that rather than how the deck played. I was more taken back going, this deck is really simple, but it works, and kudos to whoever built it.
I feel like it was sort of started as a joke somewhere. Like, I'm just going to play 4 Terrakions and I'm going to just beat my friends and embarrass them. And then they started to play it. And then it's like, wait, I'm winning far more than I thought I would. Maybe there's something to this. And then you keep going and you're like, alright, I'll play the set states.
But I think a lot of the best decks that ever came out in the game kind of start like that.
Yeah.
So, kudos to Current Hill for, I think he was the person who at least pushed it for the most part. So kudos.
I heard there was an article somewhere about it from Asa, from the guy who runs that site, the Deck Out, think he wrote an article about it on Six Prizes about the Terrakion deck. That's what I heard. I don't know for sure. I don't really check Six Prizes, but somebody told me that's where it originated from.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing the origin of that deck. But okay, one thing that I do want to mention is, please, guys, if you guys have any questions, the viewer questions. I know there's no chat going on right now with Twitch.
There is chat. There's a chat.
Oh, well, it's not working with me yet. It's
refresh.
All right, well, let me refresh. All right, well, if there is a chat, it's even easier because then I can link you guys to the Top Cut page. And any type of questions you guys may have, please please ask them there, and we will make sure to answer them.
One step ahead of you. Boom.
And Pram likes to ruin my job for me, so he takes care of that right now. And either way, the Twitch isn't working for me, so works out perfectly. So yeah, I guess let's just move on from the Terrakion subject. It's not, like I mentioned, I don't think it's going to be very popular in the West Coast. I think it was more of an East Coast deck. I think the originators of the deck were from the East Coast. I mean, if it is popular in the California area and it does become a more popular deck, then great. You know, I mean, we just added another contender to this really small lineup of viable decks, which is good for the format, I guess. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing how it performs week 2. I'm also interested in seeing if Crim Electric is going to be less played because of like the fear of the deck, or if the deck is just not that mainstream yet. Because I have a feeling that it won't be that mainstream yet.
What states were you
the
at?
Terrakion deck? I think it's gonna explode.
Are you talking about Crim Electric or Terrakion?
Well, Crim Electric is mainstream,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm talking about Terrakion. Like, at least in the West Coast, I really don't know if it's going to blow up like maybe it will in the East Coast, because like I mentioned, it is an East Coast deck. So these are all going to be things that we're going to be seeing in a couple of days. But yeah, I'm just kind of interested in seeing what happens, and if Crim Electric just gets played a lot less because of the fear. Because I mean, it is a bad matchup for that deck, and I'm pretty sure that there's very little that can be done about that.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to mention is it's kind of depressing when you look at all the decks that are doing well. Like, when you think about the past, we want to think about like the glory days where you actually had these long, drawn-out games where it was like a chess match almost. And now you look at the decks that are doing well now. It's Celebi, Mewtwo, Tornadus, all basic Pokemon. Crim Electric, all basic Pokemon plus a Stage 1 Energy Acceleration. Durant, all basic Pokemon. Terrakion, all basic Pokemon. So it's just kind of depressing when you look at, alright, where is like the depth in this game anymore?
Hey, man.
It's all basic Pokemon. It's all just a race to see if you can get to 6 prizes in like 7 turns, which is definitely possible.
I had a new appreciation for the Crim Electric Mirror after playing it so many times at States. It's actually, I think it's one of the more skill-intensive matchups.
You say this about every mirror match with every deck you play.
What? Nuh-uh.
He just gets really happy about beating his friends over and over in mirror. Yeah, and he's like, "Whoa, man, all skill, baby."
It's all skill. All skilled.
Just because you knocked out a couple Tynamodes with the Tyrogue, okay? It doesn't make
No. So, in my top 4 match, they had Tyrogue too.
Did your Tyrogue knock out their Tyrogue?
No, their Tyrogue knocked out my Tyrogue.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Now what do I do?
You had to come up with a creative solution.
He's like planning. He's going.
Revive.
I'm one step ahead.
I'm serious.
Super Rod,
though.
get my Tyrogue back.
Seriously though, it's actually pretty skill intensive for the most part, at least compared to for this format.
For the most part, it's still.
For this one?
I took the first prize, and I keep taking a prize every turn. So,
no, it's actually totally not like that.
Hey, the chat's back for me. All right. Now, somebody might say, and somebody being me, would be that maybe they are going back to the roots, but they're going back to like the old school roots. I'm talking about base set through.
Yeah, they reprinted Professor Oak in the name of Juniper. They reprinted Item Finder. They reprinted.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that Haymaker is doing so well is really the big thing. Like, I think they just wanted to put that out there just to kind of change Pokemon up for a season or something like that. That's fine.
This ain't gonna be for a season, buddy.
Yeah, it's like 3 years. I heard they changed out all the designers, and the new designers were like, "Hey, these old cards were cool." They just started reprinting them.
And I agree. I think that's fine for the game. I think that it's going to bring a lot of nostalgia back for the people that played in the base set days. I don't know if it's going to be a marketing ploy or anything like that for them, but I think it's cool. I think it's a fine change-up.
Well,
I do agree that it's definitely one of the more simple formats. Like I finished Josue Crim's Rohano finished an entire game way before time was called, and I'm talking about a full game where like the prizes
I
were
don't
like,
believe you.
6-5 or something like that. And I finished, and I still had like 10 minutes to kill or 15 minutes to kill or something. That was weird. I don't finish full games with 15 minutes to spare. I am a very methodical player, I guess, to say the least. And the fact that I had no option, so what am I going to do, Who am I kidding if I decide to tank while I know that I have to kill their Mewtwo with mine? Otherwise, I'll lose the game. I'm not going to sit there and analyze every option when I know that there's literally only one. Yeah, so I guess the format is a lot more simple. I do agree that it's a bad thing for the game if this stays this way. I do believe that playing a deck with 40-plus trainers is a bad thing for the game. But aside from that, I think it's fine. I don't mind having a little change-up as long as they go back to, having Stage 2 decks be viable again. I really want to see the power creep go down, even if we have to sacrifice like a year's worth of sets to be able to do it.
I think that's actually bad. If anything, what they need to do is buff up the normal Pokemon. Just be like, hey, we're already at this point where if we can lose a year on cards, or we can make Squirtle have 80 HP. Something like that.
Well, I just don't want to see somebody go with a power level 9,000 Mewtwo or something like that, alright?
Yeah.
That's where I draw the line.
Squirtle 80 HP, 180 HP Blastoise. I don't know.
Well, the Squirtle should have over 80 HP already, so that's
I'm just saying that's another
I
option.
think that's just a...
I'm just saying that's another
an
option
oversight
for
of
card design. You don't have to go, all right, our next set's gonna suck until all our other sets rotate out. No, you don't have to do that. You can just be like, okay, our next Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur, 80 HP.
Squirtle EX, man.
This is something that has actually puzzled me very, very much when I look at the design of cards. When you see how many things just like got a huge boost in hit points and damage, but then like the basics for like Stage 2 lines, some of them are like 30, 40 hit points still. Like, how do you justify that? Like Dynamo, why is it 30 hit points? I don't understand that. Why is a Voltorb still 40? There was actually, I took a look, there was a Hoppip printed back in like Neo Genesis, all the way back, that has more hit points than the Hoppip we have now, which makes no sense.
50 HP, if I believe.
Yes, 50 hit points compared to 30.
Well,
so
dude, it's like
why?
a level 2 Hoppip or something like that. It's fine.
It's like they're discouraging you from playing Stage 2s at all. They're like, no, we want you to use these big basics. Don't worry about evolving. That's not cool. Here's a Mewtwo EX. Look, it's very shiny, and it comes in a full art form. You should use that instead.
That full art is pretty cool, though.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I want to see them go back to the Stage 2 routes eventually. I do want to see the power creep go down, even though you guys disagree. I think it's getting to the point where it's actually ridiculous. It can be a gradual, slow, power creep where, it might take 2 years or something like that, but we get back down to normal levels. I mean, this happens in other card games all the time. I do want to see a Squirtle EX with 180 HP, Bubble Beam, for 2 waters, 70 damage, flip 2 coins. If either one is heads, the opponent's paralyzed. That seems right. That's
cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Cool
Squirtle
story.
EX, man. I signed a Squirtle at States last week. I just want to say.
That actually would be interesting if EXs could evolve. Squirtle EX into War Turtle EX into Blastoise EX. No, like the entire line is just EXs. So, like, no matter what, it's 2 prizes.
Squirtle.
That'd
Crim's
be a
a
super
Squirtle.
expensive deck.
Anyways.
But yeah, so
Wasn't there one that could evolve all the?
I thought there was, but
like
I can't.
Sizemore, maybe?
Yeah,
Scizor?
Rocket's Scyther EX could evolve into Rocket Scissor EX.
Was there a
That
Rocket?
might be the only one.
I don't think there was a Rocket Scissor EX.
I don't know if it could actually evolve from Scyther EX. Or yeah, there actually was a Scissor, I think.
I think there was just this same Pokemon with
Whatever.
EX, but it couldn't evolve into it.
Oh yeah,
Well,
there
while
was
you guys
Rocket
figure
Scissor
this out,
EX.
while you guys figure this out, please ask us our viewer questions.
He evolves
again,
some rockets inside their EX.
Yeah.
Facebook.com/the top cut. Linking you guys right now. Maybe I can't link you guys right now because it's asking me to log in. Logging in. And I'm linking you guys to the Facebook page. Please ask us any questions you guys might have, and we're going to be doing the viewer questions pretty soon, aka almost right now. Unless you guys have something that you guys want to talk about right now.
No, I'm good.
Right.
Let me break this up into a part 2 and 3. So.
Yeah, so we're going to take a small little break. We are going to be going into viewer questions, and then we're going to wrap it up with our little pre-states something. I don't even know what I'm talking about. We will wrap it up in a little bit. We will come back with our viewer questions. Here's the link. See you guys in a little bit.